Thanks everybody for coming today. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces, and it's good to see a lot of new faces joining us for these webinars. My name is Andrew Constantinu. I'm the graphic designer for the Department of Internet Ministries, and this is yet another presentation to help all of you become superheroes, if you will, of your parish and ministry websites. Today we're going to be talking about preparing your web presence for Great Lent, Holy Week, and Pascha. Just a couple things before we get started. Please, we ask all of you to mute your microphones during the presentation. If you have any questions or comments that you'd like to share, you can certainly submit those through the chat in Zoom, and we will monitor the chat throughout the presentation, and we can address them at the end. Your other option is to hold on to your questions and comments until the very end, till our Q&A session. So for our meeting today, for our webinar today, we're going to be talking about what it means to build a team to get the work done that we're going to review today. We're going to talk about updating your parish's calendar. Very important that we take a look at that. We're going to look at steps that you can take to update your website. We're going to talk about tips and tricks for getting some really good photography taken during Great Lent and Holy Week and Pascha. We'll talk about building a communication plan and updating social media. And we'll even take a look at, if we were to search for your parish today online, would we be able to find it? And then we'll wrap up, and again, we'll take your questions and answers. So let's get started with working on building a team. There's so much that can be done for updating your parish's website and web presence for Great Lent, Holy Week, and Pascha. But it's important to understand that you don't have to do that work alone. There are people in your parish that have a lot of wonderful talents, and this is the time to start reaching out to get help from all those people. Not everybody's great with updating websites like all of you are, but there are people out there that can proofread for you. There are a lot of people that are comfortable using social media and can share content. They can monitor comments for your parish. They can proofread. They can take photos, and we'll look at that in a little while. I don't need to go on with the list, but understand that there are other people that can make the work that needs to be done for your parish's web presence, that they can make it easier for you. And it's important too, if you're going to build up this team, whether you're building up a new team or you're working with people that are already working with the web, your web presence, communications in your parish, it's important that as you all come together to do this wonderful work at this time, that you work on coordinating your efforts together. Of all the things that we're going to talk about today, if there is only one thing that you do, we suggest that it's important that you update your parish's calendar. Let's take a look at things from the perspective of somebody that is outside of your parish. If they were to come to your website seeking out a parish for services during Great Lent or Holy Week or Pascha or beyond, would they be able to get the information that they need to come to your parish and attend services with all of you and worship with all of you? Make sure to include important details in your calendar. Times, dates, special descriptions, maybe having a little description about the services that you're celebrating. Of course, the name of the service, especially during Holy Week, we've got different names, and during Great Lent, we've got different names for our services. Include all that in your calendar updates. Be accurate with your entries and carry that accuracy into other platforms or other forms of communication at your parish. I just talked a little bit ago about being able to coordinate with others. Well, a part of that accuracy and consistency is making sure that the information that you have on your online calendar is carried through to your parish bulletin and carried through to printed calendars and other forms of communication, graphics that you're going to put out for these services. And some of the really cool things that you can do, in addition to just updating your calendar and putting that stuff on your website and adding it to your Sunday bulletin, you can get a little creative with it too, and build out posters or graphics with the service information to share with others. And let's take a look at just one example that's out there. This is a poster that was done a couple of years ago by the Greek Orthodox Church of Our Savior in Rye, New York. They've got a gorgeous photo right up at the top to catch your attention from one of their services from the previous year. They've got clearly right at the top of the page there, they've got their name, their address, their phone number, and their website address, and then it's clear, it's clear below that they've got the date of the service. I mentioned before about the names of the services, or in this case, they're listing out they're also listing out the feast day along with it. And then of course they got the times clearly listed there as well. And we'll take a look at that a little bit more closely. Again, up at the top, clear communication. How do I get to the church? There's the address. How do I call if I need some information? The phone number is right there. And then below we've got the date of the service, the day that they're celebrating, and then the different services listed on the left with the times clearly listed on the right. And that photo, I'll mention again, and we're going to talk in just a few minutes about photos. That photo is a beautiful, eye-catching photo to draw the attention of the viewer right into this schedule. Let's take a look now at what could be done for your parish website. The calendar, once you update it in Google, if your parish website is using our Google snippet on your website, that information that you add from right into your Google Calendar is going to get pulled right into your parish website. So once you update it there, your website's updated with that information, and the calendar is good to go on your site. But what else can you do for your parish website? Well, how about changing the color theme? We have options under the configuration menu in the Evo CMS where you can choose a purple or Tyrian theme for Great Lent, and you could have that present on your site all the way through Holy Saturday. And then you have options of choosing gold or white to use for Pascha and have that on your website all the way up until the Ascension. And it's real easy to make those changes to the color theme. Up in the top right-hand corner, when you're in the Evo CMS, you're going to see a little gears icon. Click on that icon and select configuration from that drop-down menu. Once you're on the configuration page, scroll down to the bottom and find the color scheme section. And then within that section, you'll find a drop-down menu where you can choose your different color themes. Choose the color theme you want, click the green save button in the top of the page, and then refresh your website to see your changes. It's as simple as that. Now, other things that we can work on our site. How about changing those photos that show up in your homepage carousel, or on some of the templates, we have an option for a nice big image at the top of your homepage before people start scrolling down to get more information. Create a wow moment for your site viewers and for your parishioners. Give them that image to draw them right into your website to want to learn more. Here's a great example right here. The Church of Our Savior in Rye, New York produces just amazing photos every year, and they use the talent of one or a few of their parishioners to get the photos that they need. So imagine having something like this at the top of your homepage to welcome viewers on your website, to learn more about services that you're having, or to draw them into maybe an article to comment about one of the services that you've had during Great Lent or Holy Week. Another example, and I know that we have a parishioner from St. Nicholas in Lexington, Massachusetts, in the presentation today. St. Nicholas does a great job with their with their website. So here in their website template, they've got a nice big carousel at the top of the page, and they have a nice variety of photos in there too. Great photos showing their parish family. This nice little photo of a candle. And again, we're going to talk about photos in just a few minutes here. This one here of Father George and some of the kids from the parish. It looks like he's commenting maybe on some of the iconography in the church. A nice variety of community and getting an idea of what the church looks like as well. So where do we find these photos? Well, we got a few options for you. Number one, we provide on our support website a graphics repository. And you visit that at support.goarch.org/graphics. And on that site, we give you images that you can use for your website, for your big images and your carousel, or for use in your information card section of your website. We even are starting to provide images that you can use as buttons and on your social media accounts as well. So here's our graphics repository. You can see here at the top of the page, you can filter the images. We can go by theme or by feast day. We can go by size. So if I want to look for Holy Week, then I can filter by size. If 1200 by 630, if I want to use it in my carousel, and then I can come down here. I can view the image. Let's see where we have. I can view the image and then I can download it so that I can then add it to my website. So our graphics repository is a good source for these images. Another is simply doing an online search. There are several wonderful websites out there that can give you stock photography. Now, the stock images may not be orthodox, but they may be able to give you images of candles or stained glass windows. So there are a few out there that you can where you can access these images and use them at no cost to you. You could do a Google search and you can search for images using the Creative Commons license that would allow you to use them on your website. I would caution you though that simply doing a Google search and grabbing an image from the search results is not always the best way to do things. In many cases, a lot of those images have licenses attached to them or copyright notices. And if your site is trolled and those images are found, you could be asked very simply to remove those images. In other cases, you could be given a notice from a lawyer in order for you to take action. So you really want to watch out what you're pulling from those image searches. Make sure that the images you're using, you have the rights to use them or permission to use them. And lastly, seek out photography talent within your parish. This is, in my opinion, this is the best option because this allows you to add a personal touch to your website. It builds up a wonderful connection between your website and your parish for your parishioners and for those that may one day be visiting your parish. it allows you to show life in your parish. It allows you to show your parishioners worshiping and growing together. So if you have the option to use a photographer within your own parish, really consider using their talents for Great Lent and for Pascha. Some good rules of thumb for using images in your homepage carousel and for the big image on your website. Make sure to use high resolution images, nice, high quality, well lit, well composed photos or images. Crop your photos to the right size. There are dimensions that you should be using for your homepage slider. And the slider is set for the carousel, rather, excuse me. The carousel is set to use images that are of a landscape orientation, meaning that they're wider than they are taller. This right here is an example of that landscape orientation. And make sure that you have unified sizing between all of your images. Your homepage carousel can adjust to the sizes of your images, but what that does is that pushes the content down on your homepage. And for those that have scrolled down on your homepage to find other things to learn about, that's gonna push down that content and make the page jump for them and give them a poor user experience. So make sure you unify that sizing between all your slides. Use well-written titles and descriptions. With your slides, you can easily type in a title, type in a description, make sure that they are short, sweet, and to the point, and make sure that your users can learn from what you type there. And lastly, the button in your carousel. Make sure to use good action words. Learn more, join us, worship with us, read more. It's 2023, so we should not see click here as an action word on that button. Make sure you use a descriptive make sure you use descriptive action words on those buttons. Utilize the information cards. On many of your parish websites, those information cards are going to sit just below the slider. And it's going to give you to start, you can have a row of up to 4 information cards. And just like the carousel, the information cards are easy to update. They allow you to type in your title and description, as you can see here in the screenshot. You do have that button, so again, use nice descriptive action words for those buttons. But have some forethought as you're planning these information cards, especially as you're trying to figure out how to use them for Great Lent and Holy Week and Pascha. You don't have to shove everything into your homepage slider. 2 or 3 slides at most, and then everything else that you want to feature, spread out into those information cards and let the information cards carry some of the burden of featuring these awesome things that you want to have on your website. At this time, there's a lot of people that want to help out the church, either with their treasure, offering donations, or they want to offer their time and their talents to your parish. So make it clear on your website how they can do that. Have a section dedicated to how people can give, ways to give, and give them options for online giving. Give them options for how they can send a check into the church. Tell them what's needed by the church. During this time, churches are looking for flowers for decorating icons, flowers for decorating the iconostasi. You need people to help with decorating on Holy Friday or cleaning, whatever the case is. Set up a section on your website so that people can see the different ways that they can give. And if you're going to provide options for online giving, we suggest that you don't overdo it. One nice little donation button in the main navigation, and maybe having a highlight in your information cards, is all you need to reach out to your parishioners. They can, or your site visitors. They'll see it on the homepage when they come there, and that little donation in the main navigation at the top, they'll see as they continue clicking through the website. And feel free to link to GoArch articles and resources. We have lent.goarch.org, which is our hub, if you will, of everything related to Lent, all resources related to Lent. And if you don't mind, I'm going to switch over to my browser again, because I have a few of the pages here. So here's the landing page for lent.goarch.org. At the top of the page, just below the lead image, we're going to feature the Sunday that we are in. So we just had the Sunday of the Publican and the Pharisee. In a day or two, we're going to switch it over to the Sunday of the Prodigal Son. We'll have a little bit of a description there below, and then a way that you can jump to the page to learn more about that Sunday. And here, I'll give you an example here. So we provide articles to lead people through and describe just what we're celebrating, where they can find the biblical story, how the service or how the day is celebrated. If we can, we'll provide a description of the icon of the feast. We'll give hymns and prayers related to the feast. And then I've got a couple others here. Here's a landing page for Lazarus Saturday. We took time last year to revamp a lot of these pages so that not only are you getting these articles and these explanations about the feast, but we're going to link you to the gospel lesson, the epistle, related sermons, resources on GoArch, Be the Bee videos, articles, other videos and resources, links to the Orthodox Marketplace. And then at the bottom of all these pages, we give the site visitors an option to find a parish using the online directory, subscribe to the daily readings, and download the daily readings app. So just a wealth of information that you can certainly link to from your parish website and point people back to goarch.org to learn more. And we also have dcs.goarch.org, or the digital chant stand of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America. Again, another tremendous resource that will allow your parishioners to follow along with each of the services and to sing along with you if they'd like. So to wrap up here about your website, what needs to be done from Pascha through Pentecost? Make sure to change the colors on your website. Utilize those color themes. Update your site with the proper greeting for Pascha. So Holy Saturday, you can update it with Christ is risen, truly he is risen, right up in the homepage slider. On the Feast of the Ascension, make sure to remove the Paschal greeting and remove any old content related to Pascha. Remember to keep that website fresh for your site visitors. All right, let's talk a little bit about photos here. Nico?
Hi, everyone. So my name is Nico Karitsis. I also work in the Department of Internet Ministries with Andrew and Jamil. I am by day a software developer, but I've also done a lot of freelance photography and videography over the years. And one of the things I really love is doing photography in churches and other services. So we wanted today to take a quick moment to talk about photography because it's very important in the parish. As we know, the Orthodox Church appeals to all of our senses, and that's something we hear a lot. You know, we the things we see, the things we smell, the things we taste, the things we can actually touch in the church. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to try and capture those beautiful things during Lent and Holy Week and share them not only with our parishioners, but also with the general public, and hopefully allow people to maybe experience that in some small way, and then come back to our church. So this is something that I think we should all be focusing on this year. And the barrier to entry for photography has gotten so low. Our cell phones in our pockets have gotten so good at taking pictures. Sometimes you can take a picture on your phone that is better than a professional camera. That's not always the case, and I'm not going to suggest you throw away professional cameras and use cell phones all the time, but there's really no excuse not to take photos during Holy Week. If you are going to do photography, which I think we all would suggest you should always look for quality. So maybe 15, 20 years ago, we were always concerned taking photos that we had a certain amount of film that we had to pay to develop. But now we have almost unlimited storage, and we could take 1,000 photos during Holy Week. That's wonderful, but we shouldn't then post 1,000 photos online. We should be striving to take really nice looking photos. If we have a parishioner who does photography or has a nice camera or has a passion for it, maybe we ask them to help us out with this. But always try and take really nice photos. It doesn't hurt to take 2 or 3 of something. Maybe one will be blurry, maybe one won't look quite as good. But after you take your photos, make sure you take the time to go through all of them and then figure out which ones are the best. When you are taking photos in a church, it's very different than shooting out in the world or out in nature or something like that. A lot of times cameras are going to default to having a flash on. And especially during Holy Week, we have a lot of dimly lit churches with candles. If you've ever seen photos taken during Holy Week where someone had a flash on their camera, most people, if they are in the photo, probably look shocked because they're going from this dark atmosphere to a bright light in their face. If possible, most cell phones and almost all professional level cameras are going to have the ability to shoot in low light without using any type of flash. So my recommendation would be anytime someone is taking a photo in the church, try and use the light that's there. It may be more dimly lit than other photos you're used to seeing, but that is part of the atmosphere and part of what you're trying to share from that experience. Once you've taken your photos, share them. We don't want to just take these for an archive that we're going to look at when our church is doing its 200th anniversary. These are supposed to be shared with everyone, and there's a lot of social media platforms that are specifically built for sharing photos. Instagram or Facebook, for example, make it very easy to share these photos and are a good way to help bring people back to the church throughout the week. If you take photos on Sunday evening or Monday evening, you can share that out and say, hey, we're going to be doing the service again Tuesday. It's a beautiful service. Come join us. You can link people in and you can also pull them back that way. And the other suggestion we made, and Andy kind of talked about this earlier as well, is make sure you are taking notes about the photos you're taking. So if you're sharing a photo, some people may not know what they're looking at, or they may not understand what the service is. So if you can not only show the photo, but describe what they're seeing, that will help them understand. The other great thing about describing your photos and knowing what they're about is that if you are using these for a graphic repository for your parish, or you're archiving it for future use, having those names or the names of people in it, or the names of the services, when they happened, who was present, what was happening in the photo is all very helpful, because then when you look back to these photos, you can always use them again. So let's jump to the next one, Andrew. Great, thank you. So preparation and planning. The first thing you're going to want to do when doing photography for Lent and Holy Week is make sure you're coordinating. So obviously in your parish, you may be your parish priest or you work very closely with your parish priest. You always want to make sure you're coordinating with them, but also coordinating with the entire leadership team. Make sure that everyone knows that photography is going to be happening. You may have certain rules, you may have certain places that people are not expected to go during a service. If someone is taking photos, they may be exempt from certain rules, but if maybe you and your priest know, but no one else does, if someone with a camera starts wandering up across the Soleil or somewhere else, maybe parish council or someone else may not quite know what's going on. So make sure everyone's coordinating. You know that photos will be taken. You know that your priests, your hierarchs, whoever has a say in this is comfortable with wherever the photos are being taken from. Not everyone is going to feel the same about all the photos, but you always want to be coordinating ahead of time to make sure that everyone is comfortable with the process. The next thing you want to do is make sure that you let parishioners know as well that a photographer will be present. It doesn't hurt to put in bulletins. It doesn't hurt to let people know that ahead of time, but also posting a sign in your narthex. Some people could be caught off guard if they are trying to sit prayerfully during a service or stand and pray or sing, and someone with a big camera walks up and takes a picture of them. They may not want that, and if that's the case, that's fine. They have the right to feel that way, and if they want to let someone know, or maybe someone in your narthex committee says, we're going to not have anyone photographing these back 3 or these side 3 or these front 3 pews. So if you're not comfortable, that's where you're going to sit. You can always set that up ahead of time. So make sure that people know what is being done and know that a photographer will be present. That way people will be a little more comfortable with that experience. The next thing we suggest is creating a shot list. So for photographers, they typically will sit down with their shot list to know what they're trying to accomplish during a service or during their event. So maybe you know that you have a certain thing you want in your carousel for your website, or maybe you know that you have someone designing a great poster for next year's Holy Week, and you want to have certain photos to fill that area. If you know what shots you want ahead of time, you can give that to your photographer, and they will know exactly where they should be and how they should be taking those photos. In addition, if you decide to hire a photographer, maybe that is not part of your community, and they may not know these Orthodox services, make sure you give them very specific instructions. So they know during this point in the service, these things are going to happen. And you're probably going to need to run through these services with them ahead of time, but let them know so that they can help take the photos you need. The goal is not just to have as many pictures as possible, but take useful photos. Photos that you can use next year when you're setting up your Holy Week schedule, or your Lenten times, or getting ready for some pamphlets or booklets that you're making. All of these photos should be useful to you, not just now, but also in the future. And last, enlist help. We're going to keep driving this home throughout this presentation because this is not a single or two-person effort. This is something that your entire community is going to be involved in. We all know how tired we become after Holy Week and Pascha. It is a very joyous time, but a lot of times we all just need to take a breath afterwards because we've been so focused and working so hard to go through this very holy and sacred time of the year. So make sure you're asking for help. This is a great opportunity to ask people who have an eye for photography or are very into it. Perhaps you have some youth who are part of their yearbook committee at school and they're getting very good with cameras. Maybe give them the opportunity to be more involved in your services by helping to take these photos. You may also have some professional photographers or maybe some people who are very good at taking interesting photos that they post for social media. I'm not suggesting you have people taking selfies throughout your services or you have people that are posing or doing things that are inappropriate during the services, but there's always people in your parish with talents and they may not know how to use those. So keep an eye out for them yourselves and try and help pull them in to be more involved within the church. Let's go to the next. Thank you. So some things to actually consider capturing. Obviously, we want to take photos of the services themselves. There's a lot of beautiful moments throughout Holy Week and through Lent in its entirety. But in addition to that, there's some great things that you can photograph that are not part of the services specifically. So one of the great ones that we've seen in the past are community involvement. A lot of parishes are going to do palm cross folding on the Sunday before or the Saturday before Palm Sunday. So take pictures of that, show people what's happening. You can always use this on the flyer for the following year where you're saying, hey, we want everyone to come out. We're going to have a community lunch after Lazarus Saturday service, and we want you to come out and do this. And this is a great time to do that. Or you can take pictures of things that are actually decorated in the church or things that are out that are not necessarily out throughout the rest of the year. Candles, palm crosses, decorated icons. These don't necessarily only have to be used during Lent and Holy Week. There's a lot of times that you can take these photos and they may be something that you use in your carousel some other time during the year because you've got a nice photo, it's well shot, it's from inside of your church, and you can use that to point people to your services. And finally, think about how you're going to use these shots. You may want some that are horizontal or some that are vertical, specifically for certain places on maybe social media or your website. Make sure you talk with your photographer ahead of time so that they know what kind of shots they're looking for and make sure they capture what you need. So here's a few examples of churches that have taken photos in the past that they've used. This is an example of a parish who is decorating in the church on Holy Friday. And they've then used this photo to send out to make sure people know this is not just for a specific group of people. This is for everyone to come and help decorate. This is an example of just a candle that was sitting on a ledge. Obviously, the background is blurred, but this parish has used this about 4 or 5 times over the last year in their carousel, and they've framed it in such a way that they can put text to the right of the candle. And then you can have a background photo and also have text, and it's very legible. Here's another example of making palm cross. This is one of the parish priests who is showing one of his young granddaughters how to fold a palm cross, and they've used this on advertisements for the palm cross folding Saturday. And then finally, here is a photo that was taken twice, once horizontally and once vertically. This is just to show if you were to take the photo on the left and try and put that in your carousel, it may not look nice. But if you're thinking ahead of time, we would love to put this in our carousel so people know what service we're having tonight, make sure you take the photo the right way so that you can use it properly. And I think that's it for photos.
Great. Thanks, Nico. Thanks, Andrew. Hi, everyone. My name is Jamil. I am also part of the Internet Ministries team. And now we're going to talk for a few minutes about all of the other things. So we'll start with social media. And I have a few points that I want to share about that. So there is an abundance of content that you could share if you're using social media. You don't have to worry too much about creating anything new. But if you have people that were interested in creating new content for social media, you have that option as well. But just think about what already exists. You have perhaps live broadcasting in place. So that's content for your social media channels. Just promoting the upcoming services, taking spiritual quotes or inspirational reflections about Lent to lift up and inspire your community. You can post that content. Past sermons, maybe you want to post a sermon about Palm Sunday because you're going to preach about something completely different this year on Palm Sunday. So why not post another past sermon? You have that ability. Or even just like a clip of it. You could go through and edit a 30-second clip from a past video. Even a preview, have you never been to Holy Week before? Check out this video clip to see what you're going to be missing, and you can stitch together, like very easily. Or you could probably enlist someone and give them that challenge and say, put together a minute-long clip of all the Holy Week services from last year, and I'm sure someone would step up to the plate to do that. So there's a lot of content that's already at your fingertips. So don't be afraid to use social media. I think over 70% of Americans are actively using social media. So it's not a question of whether your people, your parishioners are using it. It's how do you want to use it? Maybe you don't want to use it, and that's fine. That's your choice. But if you are interested in using it, it's certainly a collection of very powerful channels and communication resources, tools to be able to use to communicate with both your parishioners and those currently outside your community. But in addition to content from your parish, there's also content that the Archdiocese makes available, maybe your metropolis makes available. So you could browse, as Andy pointed out, the lent.goarch.org website, or any of the Archdiocese social media channels, and feel free to share that content as well. It's there for you to use. There's also some unique opportunities. One of the really powerful things about social media is that you have the ability to reach people far beyond the confines of your community. You can do so through organic posting and organic reach. That's where you post something and your parishioners or those who are following you naturally will share your content. They'll see something, they'll like it, maybe they'll comment on it, maybe they'll share it. That's all part of what's known as an organic reach. But there's also the ability to have paid advertising and a paid reach, where you actually spend a little bit of money to advertise. So maybe you've put together a post where you're very explicitly inviting people to come to church during Lent or during Holy Week, and you can pay for that advertising. It may seem a bit out of the ordinary from what you're used to doing, but if you let's say we're having a Greek festival and somebody said, well, maybe you should pay for advertising for your Greek festival. That wouldn't be so odd. So why is it okay that we pay for advertising with some of our commercial endeavors, with the Greek festival or other kinds of programming like that? Why can't we advertise for our services as well? Why can't we invite people in that way? So just food for thought. Want to challenge you in that way to think maybe a little bit differently. And of course, there's a great potential through social media to strengthen relationships with existing parishioners either by cultivating just that online community that supports the in-person community. It doesn't replace it, but it supports it. And even to build the new relationships with many of the neighbors who surround us. So we have an opportunity to use social media in a very positive way. As Nico and Andrew have already said, building a good team. So we might be frustrated that we didn't get as many likes or comments on a post when we've posted something on social media. Well, why not figure out a way to prime the pump a little bit? Reach out to 10 or 20 parishioners in your community, some young, some in the middle, and some old, and enlist them to be a part of your social media team. Get them all to commit to paying attention when you post things on your various channels, and encourage them to always be ready to like and share something, maybe be ready to comment on something in a unique way. And what that does, that kind of encourages that organic reach to grow a little bit further. Of course, it needs to be content relevant. So if you're going to post something about an upcoming Lenten teen retreat, you don't want one of your seniors to like and share. Well, of course, if they do, that's fine. But what you really want are your teens, or maybe the parents of your teens, to like and share and comment on that post about the teen retreat. Because of the way the various algorithms work, anyone who matches the same demographics of those who just shared and liked and commented on that post will then perhaps also see those similar posts in their feeds. So think about those kinds of things. It may you might think, oh, well, that's deceptive. We're getting people to post. But if you don't do that, then nobody will see your post. So get that team of people together. We'll go to the last bullet. So setting a social media policy and quality standard. We have a very small social media policy through the Archdiocese website. I don't have a link to share right now, but we can get one to you if you're interested in reading it. But there's a lot of policies and kind of legal frameworks that you can put in place to say what is allowed and what is not allowed. Maybe how will we respond to comments? If you're enlisting volunteers to get involved, they need to know what their framework is for acting within this space. Certain moral, ethical boundaries, but also just, if we get a question about this, do I give it to the priest? Do I bother him with it? Do I call the secretary? Am I allowed to respond when people ask questions? So figure out what's going to work for your community and put that document together. People like guidelines, people like frameworks. So give them something to succeed, both for you and for that volunteer and for the community at large. And then regarding quality standards, Nico kind of touched on this when he was talking about the photos. If you have 1,000 photos from Holy Week, are you going to post all of them? Or are you going to select a few of the best, make sure that you edit them and then post them so that you're reaching the certain quality standard that you've set out for your community? If somebody's going to write something, does it go through an editorial process or an approval process before it gets posted? Whatever works for you, lay it out and then follow it. All right. And then that kind of goes into a communications plan in general, thinking about just the larger idea of it. Who's involved? What are you saying? How are you responding to things? Kind of lay out a plan for everyone that's involved. It should certainly involve a diverse set of platforms. Some people love email and check their email inboxes every 5 minutes. Other people might have 7,000 unread messages and aren't going to ever click on an email that you send them, no matter what you do. And the same goes for social media. Some people might be on Facebook, some people might be on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. So when it comes to the question of which platforms should you use to communicate, the answer, unfortunately, is yes. Yes, you have to figure out where your people are and how they best receive information, and then use those platforms. So whether it's your website or email, a text messaging service or social media, even the announcements at the pulpit after the end of liturgy, in print, on flyers and posters on your parish's bulletin board, through your various publications, your weekly and monthly bulletins, and then most importantly, I think in your personal interactions face-to-face, you have so many ways to communicate with your parishioners, and those beyond, those your neighbors and those who you're hoping to draw into the community. So you need to make sure that all of the ways that you're communicating have a consistent message, and you lay it all out. We don't have too much time to go much further into this, but it starts with figuring out what you need to communicate, why you're communicating it, and then coming up with a schedule. Plan it out. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Figuring out when you need to maybe remind people of upcoming services. What will you do if there's a schedule change? You're planning on having a Lenten service for those of us in the Northeast. We just had a cold front and we had to cancel Vespers. What was our plan for canceling Vespers this past Saturday because of the cold? Or what if a pipe had burst, or we get 2 feet of snow? How are we communicating across all of these channels? So think about those things. And what advertising might we want to do in order to promote our parish and our services? The last thing I just want to say about the communications is that communications is a two-way street. So in as much as you can take on using these platforms to say some things, know that each of these platforms has a way to communicate back. So Facebook has a messaging service, Instagram has DMs, direct messages, et cetera, Twitter, you name it. They all have kind of an internal messaging and even a public messaging through comments. So any new service that you take on, you're going to have to also manage another inbox. So think about that as you start to take on more of these platforms. And don't get overwhelmed. Use whatever is within your ability, and don't worry about the rest. But also build up a team to help you out. All right, now let's go to search engines. So really simply put, will your parish be found if we were to search for it right now? And I don't mean saying, Orthodox Church in Kansas City. I would hope that, I think it's Annunciation. I should use an example. Orthodox Church in Boston, Massachusetts. I would hope that Annunciation Cathedral in Boston is found if I were to type that into Google or into Bing. But what if I typed church community Lincoln Park, and this is Lincoln Park, a neighborhood of Chicago, but you name it. What is your neighborhood? What is the name of the city that you're in? Are you found if you type church X or Lenten services X, or even Orthodox, because maybe you're not found if you type that. And if you are, that's great. If you're not, do everything that you can to change that narrative. So I encourage you, when we're done with this presentation, that you take some time, do some searches. Hold off on doing it right now. We've got a few more things to say, and then we'll be done. But think about all the things that people might use to search for you, and then see if you come up using those terms. Along those same lines, there are other ways that people might search for you. And so you may have used a service like Yelp or TripAdvisor or City Search, even something like Google Maps. Google Maps is the directory that shows up when you search for something in Google Maps is actually slightly different from the search results when you're just doing a web search. What we're doing here is searching for businesses that are listed in these online business directories. And though you might have used Yelp to search for a restaurant, think about that people could find your parish by searching for you in these same ways. So here we have this example of the Cathedral of St. Paul, I think, is that in Hempstead? Yeah, Hempstead, New York. And it looks like, they have got a couple of things going on. They've got a listing of their hours. Maybe those are the office hours that are listed there. They've got some nice photos. Looks like they have 5 stars and 9 reviews. Updated contact information. Those are all great. Well, what's interesting is that those were all maybe community-based entries, because if you look right below the 5 stars, on the left side, it says unclaimed. Unclaimed means that nobody has taken the time to say, this is my business. Maybe the priest or the secretary or the webmaster, somebody can go in and say, this is my business, and I can actually then do more things with this entry. So we encourage you to go through all of these different ways that someone might find you. And as you can see highlighted in the pop-out, claim your business. Take the time, you verify either with a phone number or some other method that you actually are the owner, in quotes, of this business, of the parish. And you can contribute to it. You can add photos, you can add updated office hours, you could even look at statistics. How are people finding you? Are they interacting? Are they clicking on the phone number through Yelp? Or are they doing other things? There's a lot that you could find out if you take the time to use these tools. And then again, enlisting a team of people to help. What you can do is ask your parishioners to submit a review. If you look at some of the church reviews through Yelp or these other sites, a lot of them that have Greek festivals have reviews about the Greek festival. The souvlaki was delicious, great music, great fun. I'm glad that this happens every year. Unfortunately, the majority of reviews are about the Greek festivals and not about the community itself, not about the parish, about the spirituality. So encourage your parishioners to write reviews, and hopefully they'll give you 5 stars about your parish itself. And all of those things will contribute to improved search results. The more reviews you have, the better results, the higher up in the search results you'll be. So the 3 things: claim your business, update your information, and get your parishioners to write positive reviews. All right.
All right. Thank you for that, Jamil and Nico. And now that we're coming to the end of the presentation, we've just got a few things for all of you to take away and process and think about as you now try to plan to make updates to your parish's online presence. We've said it several times throughout this entire presentation: enlist help, enlist talent, seek out those in your parish that can help you out, use their talents and their abilities for the good of the church. Make sure you have your calendar updated. I said it at the beginning, if there's only one thing that you do following this presentation, it should be to make sure that that calendar is updated with the important information to communicate to everybody within your parish walls and outside of your parish walls, those that are a part of your community and those that are looking to seek out your community for church services this year. Make sure that calendar is updated accurately. And then once you're able to do that, we talked about some of the great things that you can do with all of that calendar information, sharing it through your bulletins and through regular emails to communicate about services coming up, creating great posters like the one in Rye, New York, that you can hang up in your church, or Maybe people can hang up in local businesses around the church. A lot of wonderful things that you can do once that calendar is updated. Update your parish website from now through Pentecost. There's a lot of great things that you can add on to that site. Change the color theme to go along with the with Great Lent and with Pascha. Add in some great content. We talked about content from GoArch that you can link to and to help with teaching your site visitors about the feasts and the services and the traditions and the iconography and so forth related to Great Lent. Create some of your own content. If you have some services and you've taken some photos during those services, maybe have a small review written to share with your site visitors so they can learn a little bit more about that service. And make sure to get some of those great photos. We talked about some of those sources for photos, but one of the best options for you is to seek out some help with getting photos during Great Lent and Pascha so that you can beautify your website. And also, as Nico pointed out, you have those photos to use for next year for your communications and at your advertising and dressing up your website and so forth. You're building up that collection, that repository of photos. Build up that communication strategy. Plan for what you want to do with social media. Plan how you want to communicate with people, as Jamil was saying. Jamil mentioned you want to be able to reach out to your parishioners and beyond, those that you want to draw into your church at this time. So come up with a solid strategy for communication and figure out how your parish wants to use social media at this time. And then, will your parish be found? Do what you can to make sure that your parish is found in search engines and online directories. Jamil just talked about places like Yelp and TripAdvisor that people could use to search for your website. Claim your business, claim your parish, and have people help you out with writing some of those reviews. It's wonderful to have those reviews about the parish festival, but why not have reviews about your community and services and prayer life and so forth? Those are all helpful as well, and people want to see all those reviews when they come to these sites also.